We got Gators breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC, coming at you on this Tuesday evening with co-host Will Miles at Will Miles SEC. We kind of wanted to enjoy Labor Day a little bit. I had a Gators Breakdown Plus chat. We had TCU and I guess I'll say North Carolina's name, but it was mostly TCU there. Putting on Bill Belichick's college debut. So Will and I, we decided last week that we were saying, hey, we'll just record on Tuesday of this week. So we will go back on Monday, catch Billy Napier's press conference, some sound from the interview from the players as well. Trey Wilson just talked with the media. Jaden Baugh and Bryce Thornton, we'll hear from those guys. And Will, the Week 2 AP poll came out today and all that stuff. So we'll get into that as we kind of look forward a little bit for the season. And USF coming up this week with after their big win over Boise last week. So certainly lots to get into, and we'll get your thoughts on first time we've gotten together since Florida and Long Island. We won't spend a whole lot of time on that. We're a couple of days removed, but kind of a weird week with Labor Day. But Will, welcome, and man, it's gonna just still easier opponent, 55-0 win for Florida. But there was some, and you put it pretty well in your article. Some storylines still come out of this game.
Yeah, we got a few questions come out of this one. Certainly, it's funny. I think whenever you play an opponent like this, even if it had been 70-0, there still would have been people like, well, but that didn't look good. And really the stock line is, well, it's Long Island, you should dominate. And then you go, well, but it was 55-0, and it was 38-0 at the half, and they had like 18 total yards of offense or something. It's like, yeah, but the kicker missed 3 kicks. I mean, geez, if he makes the kicks, you're in the 60s, right? Yeah. And the other part is Napier with like 20 seconds left puts a dagger in to get to 55. I was like, wow, that's not like Napier. So that was sort of interesting. But, it turns out in like the morass of all the screen passes, like there's grumbling and discontent within Gator Nation that this one didn't look smooth in some capacity. So it's interesting. You think about like a game like this, and if you win it 77-0 and you're going up and down the field and all that sort of stuff, like it's kind of hard as a coach to like target things that you want to focus on. Like if everything goes perfect, this is something where I think Napier can go out and show the team film of where they need to get better. And the guys all have to go, yeah, okay, I see that, right? And I mean, you could tell that there had been an emphasis on offensive line play during halftime. When they came out in the second half, especially with Tramell Jones there at quarterback, he was a lot cleaner than DJ Lagway was there in the first half. So, certainly a lot of stuff to work on, but you're always going to have a lot of stuff to work on coming out of the first game. The nice part is if Florida had come out and played like this, if Lagway had been rusty and if the offensive line had struggled and they'd been playing an SEC opponent or they'd been playing, a Clemson of the world or something like that, we're probably having a very different conversation about Napier and his opening games of each season. But that wasn't the case. You had Long Island in the first one, turns into a really easy win. Now the question is, obviously USF I think is better than maybe we all thought coming into the year, but that kind of depends on where Boise goes from here too, in terms of what that comparison looks like. So it's at least an interesting look for Florida. Definitely a different kind of cupcake, if you're going to call them a cupcake, compared to Long Island. And then with Florida State, with what went on there, the schedule looks much more difficult than it did coming into the year. But that's part of the fun of it, right? If you're going to win the playoff, if you're going to go somewhere, if you're going to do what you do or what's expected at the University of Florida, who cares who's in the way, right? Like you need to be able to beat them all. So, 1-0, we'll take it. Time to improve and going to need to, because after this week with USF, it's a pretty big gauntlet starting from basically here until we get to Thanksgiving.
For sure. Big shout out in the comments, Stephen Harris, former Gator, of course, on High Top, our friends at High Top. He's saying, hey, where we usually go next, smash that like button. So, Stephen, hey, man, thank you so much for hopping in here and checking this out. Get a little love from a Gator great right there, winning some national championships on the defensive line for the Gators. And I saw Sardicus was in here, too. He said, me and Dave got on TV. Yeah, we were on TV for the feature they were doing on Mayer and Harmonic Woods there. That was that was really cool. I think it was Jay who, the play-by-play guy, contacted me on Twitter last week and caused some conflict of interest on my side doing the podcast and stuff. We're not really doing a feature there on that, but I was like, no, I got the perfect person for you. And Will, Mayor as well. So I was like, yep, that's the person you need to get with. So Mayor was sitting there at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, set the tailgate up like normal, and then ESPN rolls in around about 3:30, 4 o'clock, and got to see Harmonic Woods in all of its glory, and I'm glad that it was put on blast during the broadcast.
Yeah, man. All I know is my boy Max has been asking, when do we get to go down for the tailgate? He asked me today, when do we get to go down for the tailgate? I'm like, not for a little while, buddy. Not for a little while. But he knows it's football season too, man. Mayor puts on a good show down there, so I'm glad they highlighted it, and that when they got him in the stands, it was right during a touchdown drive, so that was good to see too.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to Casual Carolina Fishing back in here as well. Matt Davis, Grant Malloy. Everybody thanks here. Wally, Gators, Scott in here again as well. JJ says, what's up, Dave and Will? Good stuff. Jed in here as well. And we'll get into what he talks about. The only thing he questions is the offensive line. And look, Will, that's the best way to put it. When we get into all this right here, questions don't mean panic. They can just, this game can live in a vacuum as well. It can live by itself a little bit, but questions don't have to mean concerns. They can just be questions right now. They can be open-ended questions. And we'll get our answers down the road. But questions I don't think are necessarily a bad thing. If you're asking questions, I don't think that's a bad thing. As you said, there's some things even the players and coach has said they need to get better with. So we'll get it. I don't think there's any overreaction or reaching or anything like that. So. Or at least on here. Now, there might be some out there, but I don't think we're going to reach that level here. But everybody hit that like button, subscribe right here on Gators Breakdown if you haven't done so yet. Kind of going to be unique because it was this unique week with Labor Day and all that. Focus on the Gators with Alex Shepard. Everybody, he takes photos, with Gators Breakdown, of course. He started it last year and continuing to do it this year. So I recorded with him earlier today. So if you're catching the live stream, you're catching me and Will live. But after this, I'm going to take the live stream down, and then I'm going to attach the Focus on the Gators with Alex Shepard on the back end of this. So that will, when Will and I sign off, that won't be the end of the episode if you're listening to the replay or catching the replay in podcast form. So there we go. There'll be lots to get into. Really, you get to see some of Alex's photos from there. I share some on social media, but you get to see some here in this episode as well as we kind of tell the story of the Long Island game from Alex's view from behind his camera. So that'd be good stuff. Good stuff there. Be sure to check it out on the back end of this episode. So, well, let's get to what Billy Napier had to say on Monday as he went back and looked at the tape.
In general, I was very pleased with how we executed the week as a whole. We do get another opportunity week 2 this week. I think it's important that we make a big jump in terms of efficiency. Really good teams and good organizations don't make the same mistake twice. So I expect our prep and our process to get better this week. The game, I thought I was really impressed with the defense. I think there was 2 loafs on the whole tape. We tackled well, 6 missed tackles, and obviously when you get a chance to score on defense, it's a big deal. Obviously, we'll be tested much more in the future, but all 3 levels of the defense played well. Under 100 yards, only gave up 2 first downs, so very positive there. We started a little bit slow on offense. I think we, offensive football is about precision and detail and certainly rhythm. We need all 11 players to do their job, in particular the quarterback and the offensive line. Those positions are key to success. They did give us some wrinkles there, but once we adjusted, I thought overall was a lot of positive there. And in the kicking game, we were able to take advantage and had 100 yards of hidden yards there. So we missed the field goals. Obviously, that is the one area we got to get a little bit better. But when you watch the tape, obviously Long Island, the level of football that they play, we're really evaluating the urgency of the players, the detail of the players. how they prepared for the week, and then certainly some of the young players that got to play in the game. I think it was huge to get them some experience. So tape was a little better than I anticipated, but I do think that there's lots to clean up just to be ready to play against the best competition.
There we go, Will. And I kind of said that in the Gators Breakdown Plus chat last night, too. It's like, well, when we bring up the questions or the concerns, however you want to label it, it's like, it's not really because it's Long Island. It's because we're looking ahead. Billy Napier kind of ends it right there. But it's, we got to play better with the competition coming up. And, of course, that starts with USF, and we'll get into that later this episode. But, well, I do want to just because you did such a great job there on reading reaction in your article there and the questions that you brought up, the questions that you had going into the game and questions maybe that, came up after the game, I guess. We can kind of use that as the skeleton here. But given what Billy Napier had to say, he pretty much nailed everything that we've been bringing up ever since Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's not stupid, right? He knows he knows that his team came out there and had some shortcomings, but I think that's also sort of like if I go watch that Alabama game against Florida State, there were shortcomings out on that field. If Miami and Notre Dame, there were shortcomings there too. Both teams had shortcomings on both sides. You think about Clemson and LSU, same thing. The advantage is that, and this is one of the advantages we've been talking about all offseason, that being able to start with games where you have the ability to make mistakes and correct them before you get into the big time games is something Napier has not had in his tenure here. And so to get like all up in arms, oh my God, of course they did. They made mistakes. They're 18, 19, 20-year-old guys. I think the funny part is we spent all offseason, or I spent all offseason huffing and puffing with people who were criticizing DJ Lagway's completion percentage and his QB and his number of interceptions to touchdowns. And I kept looking at yards per attempt. And it's funny because in this one, his yards per attempt was bad. It was like 6.7. But his QB rank's 194, which is elite. And his completion percentage is like 15 of 18. And even if you take the 7 of 7 that he was on screen passes, he's still got a completion percentage higher than he had last year. He only threw 2 deep balls the entire game, right? And some of that is pressure where the offensive line didn't necessarily allow him to get through his progressions. But I think some of that is a maturation of DJ Lagway, where there's one specific on the first drive. He threw a 12-yard pass to the outside. I think it was to Livingston. And Livingston was like his 3rd or 4th read in the progression. And so you could almost see him like processing through what he was supposed to do the whole way through. And it was like a tick slow. Right. And again, when we talk about rust, that's really kind of what we're talking about, right? Is you took a bunch of mental reps, right? But you haven't thrown a ball like legitimately all off season. And so those mental reps, I think, are the things that now need to translate on the field. So it's good that you got this start, right? You had someone who could go out there, be a little bit rusty, and rusty with a QB rating of 194 with 3 touchdowns and no picks. That's a nice rusty place to be in a 55-0 win. And I'll tell you, the only thing that got me mad in the entire game was when Lagway decided to put the ball down and run, and he took a shot on his shoulder as he got driven into the ground because he didn't slide. That was the only place where I was like, all right, that needs to be fixed. Like, that's a mistake. You can't have your star quarterback going down to the ground. But even
then, at least we proved that he could take a hit.
I mean, I guess. I
was mainly joking there, but
I think there's a lot of people who are going to be up in arms about Trey Wilson and his usage. 5 catches for -4 yards of the touchdown's an interesting line, but. So, and Nick and I did this 2 years ago in our preseason magazines. We broke down all the ways Billy Napier uses Trey Wilson, and he only broke out like 20% of the stuff that they actually use Trey Wilson for, right? And they have a lot of stuff that they do off of those screen passes that, first off, if the wide receivers do a better job of blocking, then those screen passes will go someplace else. The second part of that is, though, they've got a bunch of zags off of those screen passes, and they never even had to get to the zags, right? It was one of those things where it's like, okay, whatever. We're going to show the screen pass a couple of times, get out of here with him healthy. He's gotten hit a couple of times, which is good because, he hasn't been on the field in almost a year. I mean, he was out real early last year, right? He hasn't been on the field in a year. So you get the ball to him 3 or 4 times in space, let him shake a little bit. If he gets free, he gets free. But if he doesn't, you're fine with it. Get him the touchdown reception, and then basically get him off the field and get somebody else out there and get them the experience. So, this is one of those where I'm just not going to overreact and say, hey, like, oh, this is terrible and this is terrible. Like, are there places where you can look at and say, oh, that guy's PFF ranking is poor, or, oh, you can see the pass rush is getting around. And, you and I were talking before we came on about the archaic defense that Long Island was using that apparently was a scheme that nobody on the Florida staff had seen before. But, the reality is that they averaged over 6 yards per play. Right. They were running the ball for like 6.8 yards per clip, at least in the first half. They end up averaging 6.1 yards per play overall. The defense scores, gave them a short field. They had a bunch of short fields in the game. They didn't take a bunch of deep shots, whether that was by design or whether that was offensive line is an open question. I think they found a lot of answers when it came to Tramell Jones, which was one of the things that we were all thinking going in was like, what happens if Lagway takes a hit on his shoulder and doesn't get up? And, I think we got a few answers there, though. If you're going to give it's Long Island, you should go ahead and dominate up front. Then it should be, it's Long Island, Tramell Jones should throw for 350 yards, right? Like, so again, I think everybody's sort of graded on a curve. Yeah. Lagway and Jones's stat lines look almost identical. Yeah. Florida scored more when Lagway was on the field. Yet when it comes to where people, like, no one is sitting here today saying, oh, Tramell Jones, he should have given us more. Right. So in many ways, your perception of the game is tied with the expectations that you had going in. Right. And if the expectations were, oh, DJ Lagway is going to go for 405 touchdowns. Well, yeah, you look at it, say 120-3. Like, I'd like to see more. But here's the deal is if Lagway keeps playing well and Florida keeps winning, this game has nothing to do with whether that guy wins the Heisman Trophy, right? And it has nothing to do with whether Florida goes to playoff. So tick this one off. No one got injured. There weren't like non-contact injuries. Nobody went off with an Achilles injury or an ACL or anything like that.
No turnovers.
No turnovers, no penalties. So a lot of good in the game. And were there places to work on? Yeah. But I mean, when's the last time you had a team come out in the first or second game of the season and not have anything to work on? Like, I mean, look, Ohio State didn't look like they had any chance to win the national championship in the last game of the year against Michigan last year. Like, they looked completely discombobulated in the last game of the year. So you're going to get some ebbs and flows. It's got to be. I mean, I get it that it's the first game of the year. But
yeah, and to your point, Clemson South Carolina, the last game of the season.
Well,
puts it on them, and they go win the ACC. They get to the playoff. I mean, yeah, it's.
Well, and I don't care what any.
And they play Texas good.
I don't care what anybody says. When Florida's offense went out on the field, they were already up 7-0, and Long Island had 1 first down, and Florida's like, all right, that's it. That's all we're giving up for the rest of the half. And you could tell, like, when they started running options on 3rd and 13 and that sort of stuff, it's like, all right, this one's in the bag. And at some point, it's just sort of natural. You kind of pull up a little bit. And so I'm not sure how much of this was like, some guys overmatched on the outside by Long Island's defensive end, and how much of it was, like, we got these, we're going to 10 run these guys anyway. How hard do we really need to go? And so we'll see, right? Because I think USF is a different animal. They're not the ultimate animal that Florida's going to play this year, but they're a different animal. And so this week, obviously, if there are problems at the tackle positions when it comes to pass protection, we get a little bit more concerned. But coming off of this one, I'm just like, you know what? It's really nice to not be completely depressed after week 1.
That's sure. It's a different feeling after the last 2 years. Given, we know the competition was, but still gives you a little bit of grace period. And as we said all offseason long, what better way, because of all the Lagway questions and the injury questions, no better time for Florida to ease into one. I mean, your old man in the bath, reference last week, of course, but don't want to picture that. But it's how you were getting to your point. But certainly, a couple things I did want to point out, Will, kind of playing off of what you brought up there. I thought Lagway went to the right spot. Besides missing Hansen on the first play where he took the sack, I thought went to the right spot. Now, as you said, the timing may have been off of going to the right spot, but I thought after that very first drop back and he got sacked, he probably could have had Hansen there. But then, for the most part, I thought went to the right spot. So he was that was what I was kind of impressed with when kind of going to your turnover marks of, that's where we wanted him to get better. And maybe trying to work on some of the shorter intermediate things as well, and not forcing the ball down the field. So I thought going to the right spots was a step in the right direction there for him. And well, anything to say about that? And then I got some sound from Trey Wilson since you brought him up, and we'll go with him.
Yeah, so Lagway was 2 for 3 for 32 yards from the 11 to 20 air yard range, and that was a space where he was completing like 30% of his passes last year. So if you wanted to see accuracy at those lower levels, which is where we've sort of said, hey, that's where the jump's going to come from. What I saw a guy who in the red zone was able to make some really nice throws. The throw he threw to Sturdivant was ridiculous, and he hit Hansen and he hit. And he hit Wilson for touchdowns there on the outside. The throw to VB3 was really a wide receiver catching that one. That wasn't necessarily a great throw. Yeah. But, still, I look at it, I just go, they only took 2 deep shots. And they could have taken more. Like, irrespective of pass pressure, pass protection, all that stuff, they could have rolled him out on some play actions to give him more time. Like, there's a lot of stuff you can do to help your offensive line. You could chip the defensive end with a tight end. Like there's, or, and I think you pointed this out on X, or you can spread them out. You can put 4 and 5 wide, and all of a sudden now, the corners have to
2 to 3 touchdown passes were
So I think there's a lot to look at this, and it's funny. I'm going to have an article that comes out probably either tomorrow or Thursday that looks at the quarterback numbers in the SEC for week 1. And granted, there's a huge variation in opponent and all that sort of stuff. But Lagway, from a PFF rating, so which is essentially how reliable is he? Like, how often does he make the right play? And from a QB rating perspective, which is really an efficiency rating, an efficiency stat, he's right up there with the best quarterbacks in the SEC. The place where he really struggles is my stat, yards above replacement, which is in this particular game, which is all about explosiveness. And all offseason, I've been talking about his explosiveness is elite, and it's the reliability and the efficiency that have to improve. Well, so what we really saw was a guy who didn't take a lot of chances, was relatively conservative, threw the ball underneath. But we know he's a gunslinger. He's going to take some deep shots when he gets some opportunities going forward. I suspect that the explosiveness piece that we didn't see against LIU is an outlier, and that's going to come back to the fore. And I'll tell you, if his reliability and efficiency, so PFF had him at like 83, I think, in terms of its overall rating, which means and quarterback average is like 72, 73, somewhere in that range, which means well above average in terms of making the right play, given Florida's play call and the defense that they were playing against them. And he was like 67 last year for PFF for the entire year. So if you start looking at did the guy make the right play when the play was in front of him? The answer is yes, the majority of the time. And if that guy shows up with the ability to make explosive plays, we're right where we were a week ago, where we're like, oh, best quarterback in the conference, right? So I think people walk out of this one going, God, I really thought he was going to put a stamp on it, win the Heisman Trophy. That didn't happen, at least not in week 1. But again, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions is also a big piece of, I think, what we wanted to see, where, it's that 3 touchdown, 2 pick performance that gets you a little bit worried. Like that Tulane performance, even though he won the MVP, threw for 300 yards, there were some goofy throws in there where you're like, oh man, that ball's getting knocked up. There wasn't any of that, right? Like I don't recall any throw where it really went in harm's way. And that's the next step in the progression for Lagway, realistically. So if next week you see him throwing into a bunch of traffic, like I'd be more worried about that, even if he has better stats, than I am coming out of this one where, okay, maybe he's a little bit conservative, but at no point did I feel like he was putting the ball in danger at any point. And if Lagway throws for 30 touchdowns and 4 picks, Florida's going a lot of places, even if the explosiveness numbers come down a little bit.
All right, so I mentioned we'll hear from Trey Wilson and Jaden Baugh, and we will get there in just a second. But first, message from my friends at MyBookie, and of course, Week 1 is in the books. man, a lot happened in the college football world. I mean, upsets, blowouts, and hey, my bookie lets you hit it all. It's a big win, of course, for Florida's next opponent. So the Gators are 17-point favorites over USF on my bookie. And right now you can get plus 290 odds for the Gators to make the college football playoff. Get all that and more at MyBookie, your one-stop sportsbook and casino in one. Just one account, one wallet. Bet football all weekend and then hit the slots after dark. No switching apps, no jumping platforms, just straight up action. And of course, now it's time for NFL action too. MyBookie has it all under one roof. Game lines, player props, and more. Get in on the NFL Super Contest and Survivor pools. And if you're new to MyBookie, use our promo code Gators on your first bet up to $500 and it's fully covered. Make your play. If it doesn't hit, you get it right back with the bet back bonus. No stress, just a one-time rollover on the return bet so you're free to reload and keep firing. Sign up at mybookie.ag with promo code Gators and claim your bet back bonus. All right, let's go here. Let's hear what Trey Wilson has to say. And a lot of this will kind of coming back from his injury and kind of the injury getting diagnosed, what's been wrong with him, what's been ailing him, and getting back on that field on Saturday night.
A few months with the surgery and everything. How did that touchdown catch kind of feel in terms of you being back and so?
It felt good. Just got up, just was excited, just ready to get back to the sideline with the teammates.
Just throughout the whole game, it seemed like you had extra energy than everyone else. How nice was it to just be back out there, and how exciting was it?
Yeah, I feel like that just kind of came from, it being built up for, all last season being missed out on, and then, just being excited for the moment coming up throughout the whole off season, and then, especially coming out that tunnel.
You meant to run out of the tunnel? Do you always sprint out like that?
Never. I didn't even realize I ran past Coach Napier. Some just told me to get out in that front, right away. I ain't been able to run out of the tunnel like that in a minute, so most definitely missed it.
Do you have more appreciation for that moment than ever before?
I say so, yeah.
How scary is it when somebody tells you have a degenerative hip issue? Like, is that at first scary? Like,
I feel like it kind of got to do with the tone, what they tell you in. But they told me everything. They said the conversation was, pretty authentic, and I feel like we had a good understanding, what was needed to be done, and so I trusted them, and I feel like God had me.
Was it relieving in a sense to find that out, finally get some clarity on something that you've been maybe dealing with your whole life? And
yeah, a little bit. It kind of made me feel, like I had to, lean on my peoples and, just trusting the organization.
Would you start feeling like you were fully back to where you were before, or even better than you were before?
Pretty much around like spring when I started, running full speed again and all that. Obviously, I had to get my feet back under me, running out like all excited, all explosive and jump, but, just keeping everything, detailed up, man, like locked in.
Was there aches and like ailments that you felt before that you don't feel now?
Yeah, but I just kind of thought that just came with the game, the little breakdown. But it's a lot that we finding out now.
Since you've been out there playing, is it nice to not be dealing with that anymore?
Yeah, most definitely. And throughout the whole process, it kind of allowed me, to learn things about my body, just finding out, things, and kind of forcing me to dive deeper in, nutrition and finding new ways to take care of my body, just become more of a pro off the field.
You were already into that before.
After you've had an injury like that, is there any apprehension until you take that first hit? Do you think about it and then you take that first hit and you just forget about it?
Nah, I feel like, if you think about having injuries and stuff, it's more likely to happen. It's more like a psychic thing. But, you're not really supposed to be thinking about that type of stuff playing football. It's a grown man sport.
How was it playing with DJ again, just being back out there on the field with him in the game?
It felt good. Like I said, we putting in that work all this off season, so it's our expectations and all that, so it's always good.
How do you feel like he did, just trying to knock some rust off and settle into the game, and he did over the course of the half?
Yeah, he did real good. I feel like because everybody I felt like was knocking off rust that game, even though we was all putting it in this off season. So first game is always probably the shakiest game for everybody, but at the same time, all that excitement and jitter buzz, is out the way now, so it's time to get going.
kind of going to the point we made earlier, Will, it's time to get going, the jitterbugs. And, hey, look, we got to remember Trey Wilson missed a lot of time, too, in fall camp. He was very limited in spring as well, coming back from that injury that he suffered last year that they just discussed there. But something that jumped off the page to me there, Will, and I would have asked him about this. I mean, he was asked about the player in particular, but something that jumped off to me and I was glad to see, because I'm sure Trey Wilson was getting a little bit of frustrated with what was happening around him when the ball was in his hands and, couldn't come up with the plays into some of the screens. But that did not hold him back from celebrating everything Vernell Brown III was doing. I mean, almost every big play VB3 had, Trey Wilson, whether it was on the sideline or on the field, if they were on the field together, congratulating the true freshman on a big play or something that he was positively doing that was affecting the team. I thought, true teammate aspect there with Trey Wilson. And kind of just going back to his play there, I'm just, I'm not really the least bit concerned about, his ceiling or anything. Because moving forward, I would like to see him more down the field. But kind of going to your point that you made earlier and in your article as well, the screens down the road might just be setting up something.
Well, and nobody went down the field in this one, right? I mean, the throw to Vernell Brown down the sideline was off a broken play, right, where he gets behind the defense and Lagway goes and finds him. Other than that, there weren't a lot of deep throws in the game. Florida very clearly wasn't showing very much on offense, and that's just sort of the reality, right? And good, bad, or indifferent, that's sort of where we are in terms of what was going on in this game specifically. And to your point, I mean, the fact that those wide receivers were all celebrating with each other is great, right? I think one of the things about having all these returning starters, one of the things about going through some of the hard times that they have, being able to sort of gel together the last 4 or 5 games last year, is we all sort of looked at it and said, all right, these guys have all gone through the fire. And that forges the friendships and that forges the closeness that you can't get when you just bring in guys who are transferring all the time and those sorts of things. That doesn't mean you never bring anybody in through the portal, but it means setting a culture. And Billy Napier's been very, very clear that that's something he wants to do, that's the kind of guy that he recruits for the program, that he's interested in building a particular type of culture. And I think folks like myself look at the recruiting rankings and scoff at that a little bit, but it does. I mean, it turns out that when you're like no one ever looks at a winning situation and goes, boy, was that toxic, right? like there is something to that, like getting everybody to come together as one unit. So to your point, like seeing Wilson celebrate with the other guys who are out there. But, look, I mean, he got a touchdown reception. Mm-hmm. They've set up stuff for later in the year. And
what a catch by him, by the way, too. That was a darn good catch.
Heck yeah, that was a good catch. I mean, I thought Lagway overthrew him.
I did
the ball
too.
left his hand.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's the same thing I'll say with Lagway, is there are positives that you can take from this for Trey Wilson, but it wasn't a complete performance.
Yeah.
And, for a guy who hasn't played since last September, that's probably what we should expect, right? Is to not have a complete performance. And, like we talk about, true freshman Vernell Brown, but Vernell Brown's been able to practice. Vernell Brown's been able to go full bore. Vernell Brown was playing late last year, right? I mean, so in terms of like knocking the rust off, this was an opportunity for Florida, Wilson, Lagway, and a bunch of other guys to do that. And so hopefully by the time we get to next week, they'll be ready to go.
All right, let's hear from Will, who might have been the best player on the field Saturday night. That is one running back, Jaden Baugh. I tell you what, I know I picked him when we did our predictions last week kind of to be the MVP of the team. We had that Lagway disclaimer in there because everybody's going to pick Lagway. But Jaden Baugh was mine. I think we saw that Saturday night, and, man, I'm expecting against USF this week another big performance. But here's Jaden Baugh looking back at his performance and just kind of what he brings to the table.
What was it like to just kind of set the tone early in that opening drive? You had 4 carries, 44 yards, touchdown. Just getting the season like that going.
Well, it felt good. It felt good being back in the swamp. Like Coach Napier said, we were ready to hit somebody else on the other side of the ball. So being back in the swamp, being able to, put out a performance like that, it felt really, really good.
How did it help kind of starting maybe with an opponent like that where you guys could kind of work out some kinks, so to speak, and get a guy like Tramell going and a bunch of other players on the field?
It felt good. Coming into the game, we had a standard, and I feel like defensive-wise and offensive-wise, we held that standard, but we have a lot of things to work on, as into, reading the right holes. As in the running back room, Coach Jalous teaches that a lot. So we've been working on our eyes, O-line-wise, blocking the right people, getting up to the next level, and just, progressing is that.
When you get to the second level, you're making these quick cuts. Do you have to think about it, or do you just go where your eyes tell you to go?
Wherever my eyes tell me to go, honestly. It's just something I've been doing ever since I was, younger. And me and my dad, we worked on it a lot. So
I feel like you grew this off season because, you weren't really even like the starting tailback until your senior year in high school, which blows me away. You averaged 14 a carry, so that's pretty. You made the most of it, but you really are kind of. I'm not saying you're new to the position, but you're really, this is only really your second season as a starter, kind of in a way.
My biggest improvement has been a leader. I tell everybody that because that helps me more on the field, being a leader, being vocal, being able to, get the guys' trust to see, like, whatever I'm saying is they can go by and it's going to be the right thing.
Being back out there with DJ.
Great.
How was it just in terms of his readiness and just all the time that he missed finally getting to play?
Oh, it gave us a lot of confidence that he's back out there because, he dealt with the injury, but, him coming back, shaking off the rust, gave us a lot of confidence that he's out there.
What does it say about him as a competitor that he can go 15 for 18 and not be too happy with how he performed?
Hey, he's a very, very, very hard competitor. He pushes us a lot as into, him not being on the field during fall. He pushes us, to become better leaders on the field because he pushing me like, you got to use your voice. You got to talk more. You got to get the guys into it. And I know I struggle with that a lot as into, coming in from a freshman to a sophomore and have him right there to, let me know that I can do that. It kind of helped me a lot.
Well, Will, Jaden Baugh also spoke in the other ways. Stiff arming guys, putting guys in the dirt. It was just, it was a master class on how to break tackles, which, we would expect versus a team like Long Island, but certainly just kind of lived up to the reputation. And, showing speed and being able to get away from guys, too, at the same time. I'm impressed with his, I think he probably was the best player on the field Saturday night.
Yeah, well, Jakeem Jackson got the exact same reps or the exact same opportunities Jaden Baugh did, and Baugh did a lot more with it than Jackson did. And, not exactly the same blocks, not exactly the same play calls, but still, I think, clearly we've seen a differentiation here between Baugh and Jackson and what they can do. And, our over-under at the year was like 15 carries, and of course, 9 in this one for these guys. Can't put too many miles on them, but look, if you got 9 carries for over 100 yards, you're doing something right. And so, look, it is just Long Island. We all get that, but a bunch of the explosives from the offense came from the running back position, and that's an important thing for Florida because if all of a sudden teams have to account for Jaden Baugh and have to account for Jaden Baugh with a safety coming up. Well, that's where Lagway feasts, right? The minute you leave that middle of the field closed coverage where he's got an opportunity to go outside and the safety can't get over to help on the outside, he's going to feast. And so it's a symbiotic relationship between those two, right? Lagway is so deadly deep that the safeties have to stay back. And because the safeties have to stay back, well, now you're giving Baugh a running start at the safety if you can get him past that first level. And that's how you average 10 yards a rush, right? It's not like Long Island was like bringing a bunch of guys up into the box to stop it.
No.
It was Long Island was playing to keep DJ Lagway in front of them. And so you just keep handing the ball off to Jaden Baugh. And if Jaden Baugh is ripping off 20, 30-yard runs continuously, you're going to score a bunch. And considering that Florida was really efficient in the red zone, at least in the passing game, again, I go back to, were there things that Florida can do better? Absolutely. But there were a lot of positives to take from this as well. And one of those was Jaden Baugh is who we thought he was, right? And is building on what he did last year and really showed a strength that I think differentiates him from some of the other running backs in that room and potentially some of the other running backs in the country. And obviously there are more difficult challenges on the horizon, but you're not going to go into Baton Rouge and go into College Station and go into Coral Gables and win without being able to run the ball. Like, you're going to have to be able to figure out how to make the defense come up and account for the running back so that Lagway can hit some of those balls over the top. And Baugh is going to be a huge part of that. And so, it's funny. I took under on the 15 carries and was sort of being humorous because, I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it with Billy Napier. But this is one of those circumstances where you do wonder, like, there are those running backs who get stronger as you give them the ball. Like, the defense gets exhausted. Like, I think like the game against Florida State with Gillisley years ago, where it was like, they just kept, like, Muschamp just sort of kept battering him into the defense. And then at some point, the Florida State defense just collapsed, right? They didn't have anything left. And all of a sudden he started breaking them. That's the kind of guy it seems like Jaden Baugh, or the kind of thing that Jaden Baugh can bring to the table. And obviously when you combine him with Jakeem Jackson, that 1-2 combo really should be able to keep defenses on their heels and tired throughout the year.
Jacoby Jackson.
Jacoby Jackson. What did I say?
He said Jakeem.
Jacoby Jackson. It's been a long day, buddy. It's been a long day.
I only know because if you really re-listen to this, you would have texted me. You'd have been like, "Dang it!"
I know. It's been a long day. It's up early for work today. I'll blame that.
3-day weekend. Yep. All right, I won't go question form here. I did throw out. We had some room for some questions when we talk about offensive line, and of course, it's been talked about ad nauseum. Since Saturday night here. MDN did respond. Will, should Lovett start against USF given his poor performance, or give another offensive lineman a chance? I don't think you punt on your plan after one game. And don't get me wrong, I know it was Long Island, and I was not too impressed with Bryce Lovett either, and the PFF grade, which was incredibly low for Bryce Lovett. But this is the guy that you've circled at right tackle. You've had him there since spring. You've let him take all the reps from spring to fall. He's been the new face on this offensive line, but to me, you don't. It would be an overreaction for even as bad as it was and looked at times to pull him right away, pull his starting role right away. I did like what I saw from Caden Jones at the same time, but if Billy Napier is to be believed, and Long Island throwing something new at him, and something they haven't seen, well, who's going to adjust to that a lot faster? Well, I think for the guys who played a lot of football are going to adjust to that a lot faster. Bryce Lovett might be a little bit behind. And then we'll go into a point that you made earlier. Did look a little better after halftime as well. Look, they get to the locker room at halftime. They make the adjustments that they need to, something they haven't seen from Long Island before. And I think that, bodes itself to an improved offensive line play in the second half. So, look, I certainly don't wait long, but after one game, I don't think you pull Lovett even after that performance against Long Island.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it depends on how close it was in practice.
That's true, too.
Right? Like, if practice you were sitting there going, we could go either way, and you decided to start Lovett, and you're like, I'm unimpressed, then maybe you make a switch. But if it was like definitive during practice, then I think you have a longer leash, right? And, I think it's the same thing as looking at DJ Lagway. If he'd had this performance in his first start, we all would have been like, I got some concerns about where this is going. Like, it looked relatively like Mertz, and but instead he came out against Samford and just let it rip and threw for 450 yards, and has put up a track record now where if he has a stinker, nobody looks at it and goes, oh yeah, like that's who that guy is, right? So I think that's what you got to sort of gauge is where were things at the beginning and sort of go for, or where were things in camp in terms of the competition and go from there.
Yeah, completely. I agree there. I think we can move forward now. We were going to talk defense and stuff, but for sake of time, there's going to be some more added to this episode. Not much to say. I mean, we talked about the defense earlier. They did their job. We'll get a much better idea of where this defense is after USF this week. So before we get to some USF talk, well, something we hadn't really been able to do for a long time on Gators Breakdown is really talk rankings. So Florida's ranked now, so we get to keep up with the ranking. Not that they really mean anything, of course, but they're fun fodder and discussion points that I think we can really discuss here. So the AP poll, Florida was ranked in the initial AP poll, and now it's on to week 2 and move up to 13th. Will, and then look at that schedule. One of the toughest schedules in the country, probably just got a little harder with the way week 1 played out. So we'll see what that means. But The Gators enter Saturday's home game against USF ranked higher than any point in Napier's fourth season, other than when they went from unranked to number 12 in 2022 after upsetting number 7 Utah in Billy Napier's Florida debut. So up to 13, right behind them, kind of following that same storyline. Florida State gets a big win over Bama, goes from unranked all the way to 14th, one spot behind Florida. But you look at it, number 1 is Ohio State after the big win over Texas. Number 2, Penn State, so Big Ten with the top 2 teams right there. And then LSU at number 3, Georgia 4, Miami 5 with the big win over Notre Dame. Oregon 6, Texas drops to 7, Clemson 8, Notre Dame 9, South Carolina 10. Illinois 11, right in front of Florida at number 12 is Arizona State. Florida 13, FSU 14, Michigan comes in at 15, Iowa State 16th, SMU 17th, Oklahoma 18. 2 more Florida's opponents. Texas A&M comes in at 19, Ole Miss at 20. Bama drops all the way to 21. Tennessee, number 22 after their win over Syracuse. And then rounding out the top 25, Indiana, Texas Tech, and Utah. And if you keep going just a little bit, you do see other receiving votes. South Florida after their win over Boise. So, the difficulty of the schedule did raise after week 1. It is only week 1. We will see what week 1 means down the road. But, yeah, there you go, Will. I mean, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 7, number 19, number 20, number 22, all on Florida's schedule. 7 of the top 25 teams right here ranked for the Gators.
Yeah, welcome to the SEC. That's the way it works, man. Like, it's the toughest conference in the world for a reason, and then you factor
8,
in,
by the way, not 7, 8.
and then you factor in the Florida State and the Miami non-conference games, right? It's a challenge for Napier, and it's a challenge for this team. And yet last we talked about like predictions and those sorts of things, and I think you had Florida 10-2, I had them 9-3, but both of us had them in the playoff. Right. And this is why, right? You look at the schedule and go, unless you lose to Long Island, like pretty much any loss is recoverable as long as you go 10-2 or 9-3. So good. I'm glad, right? The fans, it's way more fun to be facing an LSU or a Miami or a Texas, especially if you're a good team. And I think that's the thing is last year, Florida played a schedule that's pretty similar to this, but Florida wasn't a real good team, at least not early in the year, and sort of all the hope of the season got sucked out of us by the time they were 1-2 coming out of that Texas A&M game. Not the case this year, at least I don't think it's going to be. Certainly, I expect Florida to be 2-0 heading into Baton Rouge, and quite honestly, I expect Florida to be 3-0 coming out of Baton Rouge. And so, it's been a long time since Florida's been 3-0 with real hope towards doing something substantial in college football. It's the reason why folks have them ranked 13th. I mean, this is a solid team. I don't think anybody thinks they're on par with Ohio State right now. But at the same time, I'm not sure anybody is really on par with Ohio State right now. And so we'll sort of see as things go along. I think, if you told me that Florida had to play Clemson or Notre Dame or even Texas next week, I go, yeah, we got a real shot to beat those guys. And it's been a long time since you've been able to say, all right, the cream of the crop, top 10 teams. If Florida was going to play a top 10 team, not only is this a game where Florida is going to be competitive, but does Florida have a chance to win it? And, part of the concern, I suppose, is that you're chaining all these games one after another, right?
Yeah. After this week, you play number 3 and number 5.
Yeah. Well, but again, if you want to be a big boy,
yeah,
you got to beat them, right? And you don't come to Florida because you're going to play the schedule like Indiana plays, where, you get waxed by Ohio State or Michigan, but then manage to sneak your way into the playoff because the next hardest team you play is Rutgers. Like, that's not the way it is in the SEC. And, look, Alabama looks to be down this year. So in some ways, that means there's openings within the conference for some of these teams to take a jump up. I think with
because mostly everybody out there had Bama in front of Florida when you're taking up college football playoff spots.
Well, and I know LSU won, but I still have real concerns about what's going on there at quarterback even after that game. And
stop there for a second then, because I know you saw it. Old Bass in the comments. Will was wrong about Nuss. And then the aggregator, made sure to point this out on Twitter as well. One of the questions that came in. We still feeling good about the game in Death Valley in 2 weeks. Seeing a lot of Nussmeier, Tigers hype, and wanted to get a take from a quote-unquote objective source on the subject.
So, I mean, first off, that's a hell of a win going into Death Valley and winning a game against Clemson, right? And my contention has never been that Nussmeier is a terrible quarterback. My contention is that he's been an average quarterback. And that's exactly what we saw against Clemson. He averaged something like 6.7 yards per throw. His QB rating was like 133. He completed 74% of his passes, which is exactly what you expect from Garrett Nussmeier. 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Like, it was enough to get the job done with a defense that completely shut down Cade Klubnik. But I still have serious doubts that in a shootout, he's a guy who's going to be able to win. Now, look, DJ Lagway has to be able to turn it into a shootout, and we didn't necessarily see that against Long Island this weekend either. And so, am I as confident now of Florida going into Baton Rouge and getting the win as I was before this week? A little bit less so, because I saw LSU's defense dominate a quality opponent, though I think Klubnik has some limitations as well. And I saw Florida show a few, show a few weaknesses in some respects on offense on their side of the
either way, the biggest takeaway was LSU's defense.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, Klubnik looks ordinary. Now, Klubnik has looked ordinary before, so that's not necessarily a complete surprise. But, the other thing is that I don't think Clemson had the ability to run the ball in the way that Florida should have the ability to run the ball.
Correct.
Like, if I was more the thing I'd be most concerned about is just making sure that Florida's got its running game right. Lagway will do what he needs to do. So, am I wrong about Nussmeier? We'll see, but you can't call me wrong after 1 week. The wrong is in 2 weeks in Baton Rouge when Florida plays LSU. And, hey, I'll come out here and eat crow. If Nussmeier comes out and averages more than 8 yards a throw against Florida's defense and makes plays to win the game. But I'll tell you this. When it was 3rd and 12 from the opponent's 40-yard line, or maybe like 45-yard line, they needed a first down, and they could have kicked a field goal to go up by 10. They threw a screen pass to the outside for 5 yards and punted. And that says something about the confidence level that LSU had in their quarterback in a game on the road when they were up 7. Now, it also says something about the confidence that they had in their defense against Clemson's offense as well. But, that's a place where I would expect Napier to put his confidence in Lagway and say, this is a guy we've brought in specifically to win this game. We're going to put it in his hands. And there were actually 2 opportunities for LSU to put that game away with a first down. And both times they decided to check down and punt the ball and let the defense win the game. I don't think that's going to work against every opponent this year. It worked against Clemson. I don't think it's going to work against every opponent this year. So we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong, but that's part of the beauty, right? Is that I'm not is that one, I'm going pretty hard on this one, but 2, I think that I think there are people out there on both sides who can make good points as to why either team's going to win that game, and that's pretty cool, right? Number 3 versus number 13. If Florida beats USF this week, I expect them to probably hop into the top 10. And if Florida hops in the top 10 and LSU wins, well, now you're looking at a top 10 matchup on the road in Baton Rouge in 2 weeks. Oh boy, that's gonna be fun.
There we go. Chris Fallica, the Bear, who used to be on Game Day, now part of Fox. This is the first time since 2006 preseason AP poll that Florida, Florida State, and Miami are all ranked in the top 15. Been forever. We talk about the big 3, and rarely have the big 3 been good at the same time. And we'll probably, maybe the best since 25 years ago. I think you go back to the year 2000, all collectively finished in the top 10 at the end of 2000. To me, that's probably how long that's been. That's how long it's been. In 2001, Florida and Miami were really good. That was, FSU fell off in 2001. So ever since then, maybe one has been good and the other 2 have been down, or 2 have been good and 1 down. So first time since 2006 preseason AP poll that they all ranked in the top 15.
Well, I mean, look, Castellanos looked awesome for Florida State the other day. Now we'll see how reproducible that is. Carson Beck looked decent for Miami. I wouldn't say he looked fantastic, but again, Notre Dame is a pretty quality opponent, and so we have to take those things into account. I think based on what I saw, I'd be more apt to be afraid of Florida State than I would be to be afraid of Miami. But man, it's fun when the state of Florida has 3 teams that are all sitting there and it's these rivals. Because look, Florida's going to play Florida State, Florida's playing Miami, and Miami's going to play Florida State. So we're going to get the full triumvirate here where there will be bragging rights in the state, not just, we won't have to make an SEC versus ACC comparison or any of that stuff. We get to play them both.
And Florida and Miami both play South Florida.
Well, so hopefully we're not having to deal with like fake national championship banners for the Bulls sometime soon. So, let's take them behind the woodshed and into any of that commentary.
For sure. But yeah, good stuff there. AP poll, Florida 13, and a lot of opponents right there in the top 25. All right, Will, kind of speaking on that, I just brought it up. Of course, Florida does play USF this week. Let's hear from Billy Napier moving forward to that game.
South Florida's got a really good football team. Coach Goes has done a nice job evaluating high school players and then doing a good job in the portal. This is a veteran team. There's a lot of upperclassmen that can contribute. I do think the defensive group is stingy. I think they play with effort, toughness. I think they've got a really good sticky group in the back end from a coverage standpoint. I do think the backers are explosive. And then quite a few front players that play, so there's some depth there. Offensively, it starts with the quarterback. He's a dual threat. And then there's an element of tempo, and then there's some unique speed outside. So I do think that this is similar to the Tennessee blueprint that we faced in the past. Obviously, Coach Goes' experience there. And then this group does a nice job in the kicking game. I think they've got some gadgets, and then they have an identity in all 6 phases. So it's a really, really good football team, and I'm impressed with the film of week 1. Obviously, Boise is a very well-established playoff team, and for them to dominate the game and have control of the game from the jump, I thought was impressive for them to start the season. So we're going to need to be at our best.
Pretty interesting there. He mentioned the Tennessee blueprint. Of course, everybody knows that's where Goles came from. And, hey, his last year in Knoxville was Tennessee's best year on offense under oh, Lord, why is the head coach's name?
Heupel?
Escaping Heupel. Jeez, I don't know what I was thinking. I was just talking about Heupel today, too. I don't know where that came from.
It's been a long day, Dave. Been a long day.
There you go. It's been a long day. But, yeah, of course, Goles there. And, hey, look, Goles was there the last time Tennessee's had a lot of success on, even as bad as Florida's defense has been under Billy Napier. It's been since that year. Florida's defense, of course, 2 years ago in the Swamp, controlled Tennessee's offense. Last year pretty good as well, even in a loss. So, against this offense, if they don't have the quarterback that's going to kill you down the field, then Florida's defense should match up pretty good here. Now, of course, got to come ready to tackle against Brown, big-bodied quarterback, but plenty to get into. But, Will, just kind of your initial thoughts of this game moving forward. USF beating Boise State last week to get that big win, put some more eyeballs on this game, caught some people's attention. I'm going to have Seth Varnador on later on this week. He covers Florida, of course, and he covers USF. So Seth's going to give a really, really good preview of this game Thursday night right here on Gators Breakdown. So really, really looking forward to that one. And let me put this to a question, too, that we got today, Will, on Twitter about this. What would make you most confident coming out of the USF game looking towards LSU in week 3?
So what would make me most confident is if they shut down the quarterback running game. The game against Boise was a Dan Mullen special. 378 yards for Boise State, 372 for USF, but they lost 34-7. It's like, man, like what happened? And it really comes down to efficiency. So Byron Brown, 16 of 24 for 210 yards, so 8.8 yards per attempt. But then he also had 14 carries for 43 yards, including 2 touchdowns and the one run where he just came flying in and like could have gone over the linebacker or safety, but decided to lower his head and just completely bowl him over into the end zone. I think the running quarterback has been just a complete evisceration of Florida's defense ever since Billy Napier got here. And, if you think about the games last year where Florida was successful towards the end of the year, Garrett Nussmeier is not a running quarterback. Jackson Dart, not much of a running quarterback. Kromenhoek, okay. The kid at Tulane who was like their 4th stringer to start the season, the defense has not in its current configuration dealt with a dual threat guy. And so one of the principles of YAR, my stat, is that running efficiency for the quarterback really brings value. That if you don't take sacks, that if you average 3, 4, 5 yards a carry, you bring immense value because you keep your team ahead of the chains. You don't get them in 3rd and 12, 3rd and 13, 3rd and 14 where the turnovers come. So that's what I'd be looking for. If Byron Brown has, say, like 10 carries for 8 yards, I'd walk out of this one with USF going, ooh, the defense is real. If he's got 14 carries for 80 yards, this game's going to be a lot closer than we're going to be comfortable with, and we're going to need the offense to win the game. And I think, I have enough confidence in DJ Lagway that I think he's going to be able to win Florida some games along the way. But this isn't one where I want DJ Lagway to have to win the game. I want Florida's defense to be able to win this game. And look, Boise had 3 turnovers, 3 fumbles that were lost in this game. The turnovers played a big role. It was only 10-7. USF was ahead at the half. Now they pulled away, obviously 28-0 in the second half, and that second half exists. Same time, games in Tampa, first game of the year, a team from Boise.
First game without Genty at running back.
Yeah, certainly.
Trying to figure out what they're going to do on offense.
So that stuff all makes a difference, certainly. But I think the other part is that they could not stop Brown when it came to that second half. And that's what I'd be looking for. I'd be looking for, if you shut down the quarterback running game, then what that means is that your defense has taken a significant step forward in 2025 compared to what it was in 2024. And really, if you think about a couple years ago with Jefferson in Arkansas just running wild over them, they shut him down last year last year when he's playing for somebody else. But now, this is a guy who's shown some dual threat ability. And the question is, can Florida's linebackers, who were flying all over the place the other day, can they stay disciplined and stay in their gaps? Or are they going to start to get gashed as some of the misdirection plays come from the dual threat quarterback?
Yeah, Florida's defense is much better gap sound than they have been in the past, but this is a good test on that. In comparing it with the Tennessee offense, too, like Heupel's offense, of course, probably gets overlooked with how well they run the ball from the running back spot when they spread you out. And of course, you don't have many guys in the box, so that running game can take over, and that's also where you could stop them. So I don't know. I haven't studied. I'm going to ask Seth this. How much similarities are there between Heupel and Golish? Of course, there's going to be some differences between the guys. And it's not going to be the same exact system, or it might be the same system, but what tendencies are different inside that same system? So I certainly would ask Seth about that. But Tennessee's run game, if they get that run game going, of course, we saw it in their opening game versus Syracuse, of course, kind of continuing what they showed last year. We'll see if they can continue to do that as the schedule ramps up as well. But the running back spot tends to get overlooked in a Heupel offense, even though it shouldn't, with what they've been able to do on the ground game. So certainly that's something I want to ask Seth about. And but for what we saw in that same style of offense, it was more quarterback run than we saw. And they had some good, nice running back runs as well. But it's everybody's looking at the big bodied Brown there and what he can do in break tackles. So certainly it brings a different element than what we've seen a lot from the Tennessee style of offense in recent years. So should be an interesting game. Like I said, certainly putting some more eyeballs on it with their big win over Boise. But just Florida teams, what we think they are. I think you dominate front on both sides of the ball, and you should walk away. You should walk away with a victory.
Yeah, it's time to win this one. I mean, I look at, if you want to go where you want to go, you got to get this one.
Yeah.
You got to get this one pretty convincingly. I mean, look, South Florida, 28 rush attempts in the game against Boise, 14 from the quarterback.
Yeah.
Right. I think so. It's not just that, hey, you need to shut down the running game. It's if you shut down the quarterback running game, you shut down the running game. And so I think that's really the place where the defense, and in many ways, this is where the Ron Roberts rubber meets the road, right? Is the front seven, because of the way he's been playing basically ever since he took over play calling duties, is the front seven going to be able to dominate in a way where you got to try to throw, but Florida's got a bunch of defensive backs out there in the zones because they haven't had to bring up a safety. So the same stuff we talked about with Baugh and Lagway exists for the Florida defense as well, right? Like, can you allow guys like Bryce Thornton and Jordan Castell to play center field as opposed to having to get them up into the box to be aggressive to stop the quarterback run game? You're going to give up some big plays if you bring guys up into the box. That's just sort of the reality. A couple of big plays go against you, a couple of turnovers, and this game ends up much, much closer than the 17-point spread. But I sort of expected it to be 3 touchdowns coming into this one. I think that's probably where I'll settle. Is the Florida has more talent everywhere on the field than this USF team. They will actually prepare schematically for the opponent, which they really didn't against Long Island. And then the other part of it is that, that Long Island game was really in many ways an extension of the spring game. And this is the real one, right? And I don't think you should overlook it. Napier's done a pretty good job of bringing in Florida recruits, which means these are all guys these guys have played against. Right. And there's something to that. Right. Like, and you think about it when they play Miami and you think about it when we play Florida State. But the reality is South Florida's going to have a lot of guys who've got a chip on their shoulder because, they feel like they could have played at Florida. And there's a lot of guys on Florida who are going to want to convince them, no, you're the little brother. It's fine. And so I think there will be some chippiness in this one that if nothing else will make sure that everybody's going 100%, at least until hopefully Florida gets the game well in hand.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I mean, like I said, it does ramp up a bit with them getting that win over Boise, but certainly the first real opponent Florida will play coming off the cupcake that was LIU in preparation for LSU. So there we go. Good stuff, Will.
Yeah, man, this one is going to be fun, but it's the appetizer, man. The meals are coming up in the next few weeks. And
last week was a salad, and now we got the good appetizer, and there we go.
Last week was while you were waiting at the table, and the waiter hasn't come take your order yet. You're sitting there like, do I eat 6 rolls here before I pick the order? It's like, no, I'm going to wait. I'm going to be patient because the steak here is good. By the time you got to the third quarter on what amounts to ESPN's version of Jefferson Pilot, it was a little bit of a rough watch there in the second half, but always fun to see a Gator victory. And, I had the LSU Clemson game on the side too, and was hate watching a little bit there. So it was fun.
Good stuff. All right. We'll get back together. It'll be next Monday night. We'll be back on our Monday schedule and looking forward to it. We'll be reviewing the USF game. Looking forward to, I think the game will have circled for most of the offseason when Florida travels to Baton Rouge. So that'll be a week from now, and there we go. So looking forward to it. All right, coming up on Read Reaction this week, Will.
Yep, so I'm going to have an article up hopefully tonight talking about the SEC quarterbacks play in week 1. You'll be really surprised that Arch Manning has a competitor for a spot down in the bottom end of the quarterback play in the conference. His name might rhyme with Nussmeier. And so just sort of looking at the quarterback play overall, probably something we'll be doing on a weekly basis, and then we'll have our USF preview up there later in the week as well.
Sounds good. As I said, guys, earlier in the episode, stick around for Focus on the Gators with Alex Shepard. If you watched us live, thank you very much. But we'll cut this one up and put that on the back end of this right here. Really good conversation with me and Alex and looking at those beautiful photos that he took in the swamp there on Saturday night. And here we are back again, 2025 version. Focus on the Gators with Alex Shepard. 55-0 win for the Gators, Alex, for the over the Sharks, and it was mostly what we expected there in the swamp, a blowout win for the Gators. Some we'll get into it a little bit. But first, what was your how excited were you for all this season? Coming into the season, a lot of hype behind these Gators for the first time in quite a while, and then we see the team on the field for the first time Saturday night.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd be one of the few people that you would call not a hater necessarily, but maybe somebody who's not buying as much of the hype as everyone else. I hear a lot of people talking about 10-2 and maybe 11-1 and all this stuff, and I sit back and I'm going, man, I've been through too much. I've seen too much of this team over the past 10 years. I mean, granted, I've gone to almost every game since I was 3, but I've seen too much heartbreak to get on that boat so far. So I was obviously excited to get back in there, see, DJ, it's his team now, see how he handled the spotlight. Yeah, it was a great atmosphere, especially for a game like that. It's a season opener, sure, but against a team like that, to get a sellout crowd and everyone sticking around for a majority of the game was it's really exciting.
Yeah, for sure. So, what was it? I guess, could you tell, and if everybody's watching on YouTube, you can see Alex, like I said, he just teamed up right here with Gators Breakdown and started last year with us and taking some images and sharing those images right here. You mentioned the excitement for the team, but of course, I think when you look at it, many for the first time to see this team is really there at the Gator Walk, and a lot of energy. That's usually that's the first big energy that burst of a game is when that team hops off the bus and comes through the big crowd. So could you tell the excitement there? Was it palpable? Was it a little bit different than maybe years past?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, there's always been excitement around Gator Walk. There were some thinner crowds in other years where you'd get maybe just a row deep of people and it was a little bit thin. This year, it was stacked up 4 or 5 people deep. And especially, I mean, as you'd expect when you have somebody like DJ Lagway walking by, the crowd was exceptionally loud. And then they actually had Billy had come off the bus and they had kind of quieted down, a couple claps in there. But as soon as Billy says these words, he always gets off the bus. He waits for the guys to get off the bus. He looks around at everybody. And once all of his guys are off the bus, he said, all right, let's do it. And he sends it down. Everybody just started exploding. Super, super excited. It was great to see. I'm loving to see that atmosphere again.
Yeah, for sure. It was something really, like I said, I think probably a little more excited Gator Walk now with some of the expectations behind the team. And as you said, I think good too, we know Florida had another sellout and opening up the season with another sellout, even though the opponent not the best. But I think, kind of just speaks to, what we have with this team and the excitement that around them, but some real nice shots of all the vets coming on the field, heading into the locker room, getting ready for the game, of course. And, some pretty good images. Guys even played into the camera now. To you. Yeah, it is funny. You probably have developed some kind of, you get, pretty close to these guys, a lot closer than some get. You probably developed a relationship over the years with some of these guys.
Listen, Matt, so like the DJ ones that you passed a couple times ago, I always hope that there's a little bit of a gap in front of them so I can like hop in front and get a couple pictures. But there are certain guys, Tyreek Sapp, George Gums, I don't want to get in front of them because those are some big dudes. And if they are locked in and they're not noticing you're there, they're just going to run right over you. And so I tend to stay out of their way. I'll be to the none of the bigger guys are coming through here. I'll stay to the side.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go.
There you are. Yeah. I knew it was coming up. So.
Yeah. I tend to stay out of their way because, especially Sapp more than almost anybody, he is just like, as soon as he's off the bus, it's game time. Like there is no nothing but the business at hand. He doesn't look at anybody. He walks straight ahead. He locks in and not somebody I'd want to mess with.
And these guys are in suits. It's 90, 95 degrees outside. You can see, you can see in this picture right here, Tyreek Sapp just dripping sweat. So that probably doesn't really help either.
Yeah, all the guys are sweating, and obviously, I understand why they want to have them in suits, but it wouldn't hurt to maybe let them wear like a nice T-shirt one of these days and cool off maybe during these first few months.
Yeah, and then getting us right there right before we hit the field, Billy Napier and Scott Strickland, of course. So, Alex, I guess gearing up for the game, you kind of mentioned it just a second ago, but just how was it? How was it being back in the swamp, man? And it's been quite some time since we've even seen this team play. We go back to the Tulane bowl game, and kind of one more time. Not the biggest of opponents, but man, these we don't get what 6-7 of these a year, and it's still overmatched opponent, but good to be back in there.
Yeah, it's always great to be back in there. And actually in this photo that's on there, just over his right shoulder up there in section 1 in that corner underneath the L on Florida, I used to sit there growing up right up there for years. And so every time I walk in, I look up at that corner, remember all the memories and think about all the kids that are in there that are getting these new memories with these new years of DJ Lagway that they're going to be talking about hopefully when they're my age and, getting older, telling their kids about it. And so there's just something special about that place. I've been to a lot of college football stadiums and the Swamp is something special. I'm not just saying that because I went there and I'm a 4th generation Gator, but the atmosphere feels like it's starting to come back. It feels like people are starting to get a little more excited about the team. They feel that promise that, we feel like we've been lacking these last couple of years where we just haven't had that pure excitement, that hope that, oh man, this might be something special this year. So you could feel it. You could absolutely feel it on the field. The players felt it too. There was a really high energy. These are just some shots of Brian Case. He's a walk-on. I shot him at Ponte Vedra actually, and so I got a couple of him. His mom is a good friend, so I took a couple pictures.
You have Jay McCray there on the sideline, of course, and getting some of him. Dallas Wilson.
Look at the chains, man. I mean, good Lord. He must have the strongest neck on the team because that's got to be at least 15 pounds of stuff on his neck.
NIL. I mean, there we go. Just some of those guys not playing there. Alex, explain the fanfare around DJ Lagway. Like, how is it pregame? Like, I'm sure it's like fans and just, kids, of course, around the locker room tunnel and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's probably he needs to kind of, just, and all these players that are in that kind of mold, just get away from it for a little bit as fast as you can, I guess.
I think DJ has gotten, I think he's used to it. I think that he has gotten a lot more accustomed to the fanfare surrounding him. He likes to block it out. You saw he's in the headphones. A lot of guys are in headphones, but DJ's very much locked in when he's at Gator Walk. When he comes out of the tunnel, he's not, looking around at everybody. He's very locked into his process, and I think that shows a lot of maturity on his end. Dallas Wilson, on the other hand, was like autographing for kids and high-fiving people and see, like right there, he's taking his time to talk with people. Shows a lot of character. He's a super nice guy, and still seems very humble that he, was willing to sit with some kids over here, talk with them, sign some stuff, even though he's not playing. He could have easily chosen to just gone out on the field and done nothing, but he sat there for, I'd say, a good 3-4 minutes with everybody signing stuff and saying, hey, and talking to people.
Nice. And man, I tell you what, you captured it right away. Teams coming out of the tunnel and nice low angle smoke coming up out of the, celebration there of the team coming out of the tunnel. And it was game time not long after that. And Alex, I mean, of course, LIU gets the ball first, and no surprise, there you are, Bryce Thornton, touchdown, 7-0 Gators on the LIU first drive, and starting the season off with a defensive touchdown.
Yeah, who would have thunk, huh?
Just imagine everybody asked the questions on Twitter or social media. Hey, who's going to score the first touchdown of the game?
Oh, of course it's going to be Bryce Thornton.
Yes. Yeah, of course it's always offensive players, and it's Bryce Thornton.
Yep, of course. And what's kind of wild is, you may know this about me. 9 times out of 10, I have the worst luck on getting touchdown photos because I'm not in the end zone, and this was one of those. So I was actually, the band had just come off the field, and they were holding up all the photographers from getting behind the bench, because as photographers, we're not allowed to go in the bench area unless you're a UF affiliated photographer. So we have to go the same route behind the benches that the band does. So the band was, walking slowly, and we were stuck behind them. And so by the time I got to the sideline to go behind the end zone to go sit myself over there, this happened. So I had to catch it from across the field. Still came out pretty good, but of course, it was nice to see the defense doing their thing, and Bryce Thornton had himself a game. So hopefully that's a
turnover magnet, man.
I love it.
Ole Miss game last year, and now the two fumble recoveries this game. Good for him. Yeah, he's talking to the media this week, so we hear from him, and just the kind of route the defense is going this year, but also just exciting and good for the defense, man. We've been kind of just waiting for a defense, and we'll see what happens when the schedule gets tougher. But starting off the season, continuing that big November stretch that they had last year, and starting off with a touchdown this year. So.
We saw that photo pop up. Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming this was the extra point after, but
yep. We could, we'll just pretend. I think that's what it was. I see the confidence in his eyes there. But
so if you're listening and not watching, that was a photo of one Trey Smack there. And man, hopefully just an aberration.
I agree. He's a good kicker, man.
The last one, of course, you're kicking this near 60-yard field goal. No harm, no foul, not making that one. But man, some of the easier ones now, we gotta straighten that up a little bit.
Yeah, we know he's got the leg. We know he's got the talent. Just get those out early, and then we'll clean it up later on.
Yeah, Combine McClain right there on the field and stuff, and getting just the Jaden Baugh, the ugliness, taking somebody's soul right there.
Get off me, man. Sit down.
That reminds me of when the new EA Sports college football video game just came out, the 26 version. And before they patched it for the first time, you could just stiff arm everybody into oblivion. That's what this reminds me of.
No, yeah, that's what it looked like, and it felt. I mean, I feel like I could have felt him from the end zone there with how hard he threw that guy down.
So you had a shockwave over there.
There was a shockwave straight through the stadium. I will tell you what, man, I am so impressed with Jaden Baugh. I think that even though it's an easier opponent, we'll say that a billion times, he just looks good. He looks fluid. He looks like he's got the vision. I mean, it could be a huge year for him. I think he is going to be the MVP this year.
Yeah, that was my pick. That was my pick.
Yeah.
This year, Jaden Baugh was, of course, he had to put the Lagway disclaimer in there, of course, because everybody's going to go Lagway. Yeah, everybody's going to go Lagway. So I was like, all right, let's go somewhere else with it. And Jaden Baugh, where I went. Lagway, comes out early on, and then he takes a sack on the very first snap, and kind of, you could definitely tell there was some rust. Knocking off the rust from so much time off in spring and fall. Certainly turns it on in the second quarter. I think 10 of 12 in the second quarter off the top of my head, maybe, and like about 20-ish of his yards in the second quarter. So, it took some time, I think, surprisingly, for the offensive line to kind of, get their legs under him, but also number 2 there behind Jake Slaughter.
Yeah, I believe that, when I was sitting in the end zone talking with some of the other photographers and some of the reporters that were sitting down there, we were all kind of scratching our heads a little bit. You have it's an outmatched team. Let's be honest. And we're not throwing the ball deep. Yeah. We're doing short screens and we're having to do these short balls because it looks like maybe we're trying to get DJ comfortable because he looked, like you said, he looked a little rusty. He looked kind of jittery in the pocket where he would just try and scramble around and not really sit there and get his reads. And that was concerning to me against a team like this. We should be able to get passes out that are more than a screen out to the side. Now I have nothing wrong with screens, but we need to start pushing that ball downfield, and we should have been doing that more often. Now, like you said, he kind of opened it up a little bit in the second quarter and saw a little bit more of that. Obviously, the Vernell Brown, the third catch, stuff like that. But hopefully it's just some rust, like you said. Hopefully he shakes that off and performs a little bit more like that second quarter come USF time, because if not, might have some issues.
Trey Wilson, part of that, great image of him here, certainly had the touchdown catch, but part of those screens that you mentioned so much. And, going back and watching it, I'd like for maybe him to try and, or not try, but, make somebody miss or something. But going back and looking at it, man, not so much on him. The blocking left a lot to be desired out there for him to get some help in those screens.
You're right.
So, hey, maybe that's part of it. Maybe they've struggled blocking the screens in practice as well, and Napier wants to put it in game situations and see if that continues. Well, if that was the case, it did continue there Saturday. But certainly I think it's somebody we're just waiting to see because of the injury last year and what he could do in year one. We saw him do those screens and those pop passes and make some things happen. Kind of going to your point about Lagway, on the receiving end of going down the field, I'd like to see Trey Wilson, be a recipient of that instead of just a guy close to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, and both Trey Wilson and Trey Brown, they both are reminding me a lot of almost like a Ricky Pearsall, Kadarius Toney like hybrid. Like they're very shifty guys. I genuinely think that if we can get them going, they're going to be our best duo. Add in Dallas Wilson potentially in a week or two or whatever he's coming back. We could have the best wide receiver core in the SEC. That's how strongly I feel about it, because I love the shifty, quick guys. Like Kadarius Toney when he played here was one of my favorite guys. And I feel like they have that potential. And so if we can just get some of these guys downfield, so maybe some middle of the field, 10-yard route kind of stuff, because these guys can make distance between players. They can put them on skates and move them. I think we could have something special going on in the wide receiver core. So hopefully they figure it out.
Another group I feel about that high about, this linebacker group. Great image here. Both of them in the backfield right here with Miles Graham and Jaden Robinson.
He stared him down, man. Ooh.
No, yeah, and both those guys at different times, man, they were just freaking missiles just going through that line of scrimmage for Long Island, whether it be diagnosing the play and then putting their foot in the ground and going up, or just believe it with Miles Graham. This might have been the play here where he's on a run blitz or whatever, and just times it up just right. And I mean, I'm very, very high on this linebacker room.
No, I'm telling you what, Miles Graham is going to be, I think, our best defensive player this year. I just think he's got his dad's speed, but he's built like a linebacker. So, which his dad kind of is built like a linebacker too. He's a big guy. Yeah, I'm really excited to see Miles grow and continue to kind of fill into that role.
Yeah.
We have a lot of dudes on defense. Let me tell you, Cormani, super excited. Love that picture of Cormani.
Yeah.
That was a cool one.
Hey, you know what I picked up on this picture?
That we need to add a 2025 in the top right.
There you go. But you got the 25 right there in Cormani.
Okay, I'll take it. You just got to put that up there too, and then we'll have it both, and then we'll be good.
Yeah. But yeah, there you go. We're that was what I took away from it.
Nice.
Maybe some foreshadowing there from Alex Shepard.
We'll have to come back to this here in a couple months. See if it pans out. Hopefully it's 25 and not 2 and 5. That's what we need to make sure. Got to make sure it's the other way.
For sure. Defense there continuing, of course, and then so many tackles behind the line of scrimmage. There's tackle for loss. It was 3 and out so many times for Long Island. 1 first down in the first half, 1 first down in the second half. Defense just does its job. Hey, you guys, there were some cool celebration photos. Tyreek Sapp and George Gums, Tyreek Sapp and Cam James here, and all that. And then, celebrating old Billy Donovan there at the end of the first quarter for getting into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Billy D, man. I don't know what it is. Like, I feel like he just hasn't aged over the past 15 years. He just kind of had that gray hair look about him.
Yeah.
But no, what a legend, man. Especially we have this last year winning the championship, and then to have him come back and be here, just an absolute legend. And he just got this aura about him. He's someone important, and it's always great to see Billy back in Gainesville.
For sure. Take Casey right there on the sidelines, and of course the analyst there for the Gator Radio Network. Just some more plays behind the line of scrimmage, of course, get some celebrations, but we got to get to it because I know this is another fumble recovery there by Bryce Thornton, so that's good. Trey Wilson touchdown catch, of course. Yak. Hopefully we see the more yak.
Yeah, we got more of the yuck this time, but
there we go.
That was good, huh?
Yeah, that was good. And then, but the story of the game, Vernell Brown III, of course. We'll be getting to the image here in just a second, but leading to the big one-handed catch, Lagway throwing it up. Brown having to shuffle back, reach one arm out, and just kind of snag it there, tap it to himself, and get the one-handed catch. It's you kind of alluded to it earlier. As a photographer, sometimes it's just right place, right time. And for this one, right place, right time. It sticks in your head, of course, when you watch a game. And I know you're down there on the sideline, and as soon as this happened, I'm like, oh, I hope Alex got that. And it's but you just a lot of things are happening on the sideline of a game and all that. And then when a big play like this happens, it's just it's gotta I guess make sure you're on your P's and Q's and trying to capture it at the right moment.
All right, David, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret here.
Okay.
I wasn't even looking through the camera when I took this picture. I didn't see the ball. So I was looking at Lagway because I saw him scramble out, and I took a couple pictures of him, and I looked up at the same moment that he let the ball go because I was trying to see where he was going with it.
Gotcha.
And I was looking the complete opposite direction, and out of my peripherals, I saw it, and I was bringing the camera up, and I just started clicking before I even got my eye there, and that's what this ended up being. And so I was fortunate to catch the focus on it too, and got a couple shots of him bringing it down, which, what an insane catch. And by the way, let's not do the backtracking for 15 yards. Let's not moonwalk our way back next time. Let's keep it running forward and then get it into the end zone. But dude, what a catch.
I'm wondering if you saw Lagway scramble as well and was doing scramble drill.
Wait, say that again? It was a scramble drill?
Yeah, I'm wondering if he saw Lagway.
Oh, if he saw, and he just took off. Yeah.
And so he sees Lagway, and then all of a sudden Lagway launches it. He's like, oh, okay.
Time to go.
Maybe, I think he might have thought all right, it's time to work back towards the quarterback in scramble drill. And then
nope, it was already on the way. And we were all Billy Napier in the background going, wait a minute, is this actually happening? For those who can't see it, Billy is just kind of looking like, are you going to catch this? Is this happening? But man, the energy after that. And when they showed the replay, my gosh, everyone was just so excited. It was a great catch. This guy's going to be a special player. I think he may end up being our leading receiver at the end of the year.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Hey, after that, now I know it's only one game, and look, if people can overreact to bad stuff, and you may say that happens. Well, if we overreact to good stuff, I wouldn't be surprised anymore. I know it's only LIU, and I know it's only one game, and there's that disclaimer again, but from the hype from spring, the hype from fall camp, and now we see it in game one as well. If he is a leading receiver, I don't even think that says anything bad about the other receivers. I just think he might just be that good.
No, I think he is much more mature than I gave him credit to be in terms of like his capability for route running. His punt returning was electric. I mean, when was the last time I guess Kadarius Toney was like the last electric punt returner that we have. I hate to keep going back there, but he reminds me a lot of him. He's super shifty, super quick, and I don't know. I just feel something. He's going to be special this year, and those two, I think, are going to have just an electric year. I think it's, with some good play calling, they're going to be on their way.
Yeah, they seem to have a pretty good relationship, too, already, Trey Wilson and Vernell Brown III. So two threes there, by the way. Not number threes, but
Trey.
Yeah.
And Trey.
Hey, I'm a third as well, so just add me to the photo somewhere.
I am not. I can Photoshop you. We can do that.
Good stuff. And then, of course, coming out of halftime, Alex, a pretty big surprise. I don't know. Okay, maybe not big surprise, but maybe a mild surprise that it was Tramell Jones, our Jacksonville boy here, coming out second
904.
Half. Yep, and getting every snap at quarterback in the second half. Now, not a huge surprise the way they've been talking him up the last couple of weeks that he gets a lot of playing time. But like I said, I'm probably mild surprised that he was the first one. And then to me, the big surprise was getting every snap in the second half.
I hadn't followed as closely, if Harrison Bailey was going to get some playing time or if Jones was going to be the surefire second string. But I think we may have just gotten our answer. I mean, obviously the kid's got talent, young, and he's got the poise to play, play the position. He made some great throws. He put it on the money a few times on deeper passes as well. So, regardless of the level of opponent, you could see the intangibles were there, that he had the vision to get some good passes out. I think, learning with DJ Lagway, they're both young players. I think it's going to be great for him and his development as well.
For sure. Excited to see that can continue. Of course, South Florida coming up this week, so we'll see. Florida can put some points up and get up enough on them, give Tramell some more snaps, and then SEC play starts. So who knows? Hopefully we don't see him a whole lot because of injury or Florida's down or anything like that. It's maybe in some mop-up duty. Be interested to know though, does Florida wanting to play more than 4 games? Keep that red shirt maybe. We'll see, but. Of course, in the back of our heads is the injuries DJ Lagway has dealt with. So a lot of people started feeling a little better about the backup quarterback role here there for the Gators. So, Alex, before we wrap up, man, anything you saw Saturday kind of change your expectations, perception of this team? Kind of, one of those games in a way, it just kind of is what it is.
Yeah, you can only take so much. I think that it's got to feel good regardless of the opponent as a defense to get a shutout. I think for morale, that's got to be big. So I hope that they carry that over. Obviously USF looks like a really good team, a lot better than most people are giving them credit for. So it's not something that we should take lightly. We should make sure that we take it serious and, give it to them when they come here. But overall, I think the team's right where I thought we would be. I'm still cautiously optimistic. Like you said, DJ's history with injuries has me worried. I hope he can stay healthy and have a great season. But I guess we'll just see what happens next weekend. And we play an opponent that's a little bit more not on our level, but nearer to our level in terms of competition.
For sure. Guys, if you saw the photos, if you're looking at the YouTube version, or if you follow both of us on social media, but certainly sharing Alex's photos out there at Agent Shep on X. But, of course, if you're in the Jacksonville area, contact him. He can set you up with some kind of photo shoots, but Alex also real estate.
Yeah, weird, right? No, so that's what I do for a full-time job. I'm actually a realtor here in Jacksonville. I've been doing it for about 5 years now. And so anybody in Northeast Florida, or even if you're in Gainesville looking to buy a house, I have great contacts over there. Anywhere in the state, actually anywhere in the world, if you need a referral, I can get you one. So if you have any questions about real estate or looking to buy a house or just interested in how the market's doing, give me a call.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Alex Shepard right here. And Alex, looking forward to another great season, some more great photos. Which ones we got? We got all the home games. I think you're planning on Miami as well.
I'll be there.
And here in Jacks for Florida, Georgia.
Yeah, and the SEC championship and the national championship as well. And
zing, there we go. Let's go.
Yeah. Put the vibes out there. We got to make it feel good. We got to put it out there.
For sure, for sure. I hope all of that comes true. I hope we got plenty of photos, celebration photos this year coming from the Gators. And once again, everybody, this is Focus on the Gators with Alex Shepard.